I'm going through changes. I'm turning the pages of my life. I don't know what the age is. I start sounding outrageous in your eyes. Is it the passing of the seasons, passing of the time, looking for a reason and what you left behind, searching for the answers?
Yep, the brain. I have had a lot of dealings lately with brain issues, and it seems to me like my life has kind of been full of it. First of all, I have epilepsy. Now, I only was diagnosed with epilepsy when I first moved to Elliott Lake, and apparently I was having grand mal seizures. The thing about it is that I don't remember any of it. My parents told me that I had had these seizures, and they told me what had gone on, but I have no memory of them whatsoever. I do remember going and having the EEG test twice because they lost the first one, and stuff. And I remember getting prescribed medication, and I remember losing my driver's license, and that really got me because I worked really hard to get that, because I was a very timid driver when I started. But apparently they have to report you, so okay. But I have no memory of it. And then my next exposure to issues with the brain was when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And that was 10 years worth of learning that, wow, the brain is the most wonderful and mysterious and complicated and confounding organ creation, however you want to think about it, that I could ever think of. And that is why, for me, it really is the final frontier. Could you see us ever being able to do any of the other exploring that we want to do for these other things that have so much appeal because there's so much not known about them? If we didn't have the brain that we have, and it didn't work in the way that it did to make us question things and go on, but then to think that that can be taken away from you. And now there's my ma. And while she had a sort of diagnosis of vascular dementia, they've also said it was anxiety. If I'm any guess on things, I would say that for quite a while now, she's been having TIAs. But this last issue that I wrote about on the community post, the whole left side of her face just drooped way. I've never seen that before. I now know what that means. Just way down, and her mouth twisted up and around. That was very scary stuff. That was really scary, because she couldn't stand up and she couldn't walk and she couldn't talk properly and all sorts of things. And then you start to notice things, and it seems to be fairly common again in the three of us. Okay, and I don't know if they're related or they're not, but it seems to me that memory loss is kind of like a set of stairs. And all of a sudden, the stairs just kind of stop, and you're either going to go over and fall into this little abyss type of thing where you don't know what anybody's talking about, or you can't quite place the thing, or you don't know what's going on, And it's a very frightening place to be because people are talking around you as if you should know what this is and you don't. And a very protectionist thing comes over you to sort of go like, no, I'm okay. I'm really okay. Like, for me, as I said, I don't remember any of the seizures that I had. But I would assume my parents would not lie to me. And then somehow that is connected to other memories. And sometimes I have zero memory of it. And people will be talking about, say, do you remember that, Leona? It's like, no. But other times it's like I'm going along and everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. And then it's like, whack, and it's gone. And I don't know where that went. And for somebody like me who has been, I'm always referred to as the smart one. You know, you like pursuing things that are all cerebral like that, Leona, because you're smart. You like that better than physical stuff, and on and on. Not true, but okay, fine, and everything. But to just sort of like, it's got to be there somewhere. And why can't I retrieve it? You know, like, what happened? Where did it go? That's disturbing, you know, because like, okay, so my sister has memories of us doing certain things, and my cousin has memories of us doing certain things. My mom, you know, and stuff, and my grandma when she was alive, and stuff. But it just sort of like, and that's weird. That's just weird, and it feels odd. And then my dad, well, Alzheimer's does it different. It, like, your memories go, but they go weird. Like, it's short-term memory apparently that goes first, but even at that, it's like it's silly. Little things that you can actually write off, you know, like he didn't know how to get back to me. We were out doing gardening for some people, and he had to go and get the other battery for one of the tools, and he didn't know how to get back to where I was. And you can write that off because some places here, it's not hard to get anywhere here, but if you haven't been to some place first, there's like rows of streets all named after trees. There's streets all named after former politicians in town, and you know, like things like that all the way along. And if you don't know exactly where you are, you know you were on the tree streets, but you don't know which tree street you were on, sort of thing. So that, and you know, like little things like that, you can write them off, and then it gets a little bit broader, and it gets a little bit broader from there, and then you start to notice that more things are missing, and they're trying to hide more things from you. Like, Dad didn't remember that his driver's license had been suspended and taken away from him, and we would explain that. And it became the story repeatedly over and over and over again that didn't we remember, Mom and I, that he had gone and had the retest for the driver's license, and that the examiner had said that he didn't even know why he had been sent to be retested, because his driving was still all good and his driver's license was still good and everything was great, and that's the way that one became. And you're also into things like, oh no, I've already had my shower, so, you know, and I've changed my clothes, even though he was still wearing the same clothes he had worn for a couple of days. So things like that. And that's the way that memory with Alzheimer's seems to go, until there starts to be bigger and bigger and bigger holes, where things like he would always call me his daughter, but he didn't know my name. And he didn't know who my mother was at all. he said that we worked here and that we were only waiting for our paychecks to be collected because we really didn't do anything. Stuff like that. And then as it got older and longer into it, he saw a painting that my mom had done, and he confused that in his head with what was real. And then sundowning. If you've never experienced sundowning, that's where all the times get mixed up and they tend to be awake during the nighttime hours and asleep during the daytime hours. So there was all that, and there was a great deal more that went along with it, including when your body just says, I don't want to eat anymore and I don't want to drink anymore. And then there was leg cramping and all sorts of things that went on with that. It was an interesting time for all of those things. But what's interesting to see there is that even as the brain stops doing the things that it's still all of the things that you do automatically, like breathing and swallowing and blinking your eyes and things like that. Those are some of the last things to go. That was amazing to me to watch. I don't mean amazing in a like, oh wow, but when you look back on it and you see this that we live in is an incredible gift. Anyway, so now with my mom, there are issues with her speech now. She always sounds like she is slurring a little bit, or like she has a lazy tongue. All right, and in looking at how the brain talks to the tongue and what goes on, and seeing it, and I'll show you a picture of how it's all connected. It is the most amazing thing to look at, to see that all of these nerves, which are the 12 cranial nerves, which deal with a whole lot of the like eyes and ears and the tongue and nasal stuff in your face and being able to smile and so on and so forth. Okay, so 12 nerves in pairs, so that each control each side of the face and stuff. And so the tongue is in the medulla or medulla, or however it is said, and which is in the brain stem, and it comes down inside the spine. And the way that it gets in contact, this nerve, it's gets in contact with the tongue is through these really slender little filaments that feed their way out through the hole in the spine, like, so they come out all the place, and then they attach on the underside of the muscles. And so when you think about your tongue, you're only thinking about one thing, that fella, right? But there's a whole lot of other musculature or anatomy that constitutes your tongue and what goes on with the whole speech thing. But what I didn't understand, and I do now, is that, so say for example you did have a TIA or you did have a stroke, right? One side or one filament can be affected, and that will cause your tongue, which is going straight out at this point, to lapse to one side or the other, right? So when they come to you and they're going to do their exam to see whether or not they feel you've had a stroke, one of the things they ask you to do is to stick your tongue out. And being unable to do it indicates to them that there has been some sort of action going on with these brainstem where the nerves are for your tongue, and that some kind of damage has happened there, that's been hurt in some way. It can be compensated for over time. There can be even therapy done that you could get all of these things back, but still that is one of the assessments that they do, because it lapses to one side and Mom couldn't stick her tongue out. The other thing that happens is with the voice box or your larynx, which is another really interesting thing. Two things could be at play there. Number one is hypothyroidism, okay? And that's when it does cause a very gruff voice and problems with the larynx. But over the course of time, hypothyroidism, which is fairly common in older people, apparently, can bring with it the other medical ailments that contribute to strokes and heart attacks in all of their varying ways. Things like high blood pressure, which my mom has had since she was in her 20s, and it has been basically uncontrolled. No medication that she ever took ever brought it down to normal and kept it there, kind of thing. So she, even to this day, the medicine that she takes doesn't do that. She hovers in and around 150 over 100, around there, and so that could be a contributing issue to all of this. And so her voice is very hoarse, and the tireder she gets, the more hoarse it gets, and the sorer it gets, and then she's got a cough, and that is also a part of this whole cranial nerve thing. She now has her left eye is in and about this level of droopiness all the time, and it goes wonky as soon as she gets tired. Plus, it doesn't open as wide as the other one, and so it's a bit. It's hard to explain, but this is the brain doing its thing, and there's more emotion at play now. She cries a lot, and so all of these things have happened since this incident that I wrote about, in greater quantity and greater depth, right? The one leg on her left-hand side, which is the side that's been more affected than the right, is extremely stiff now. Like, she kind of walks like me with her one leg does not bend. And so it's out to the side, and she's now walking like this to keep her balance. So when you look at all of those things, how do all of those things connect? That would be what I'd want to know. Why I think that so much we should be concentrating on that and looking at how the brain does what it does. Because I think if we start to understand that, then I think we can develop not necessarily medications, not necessarily surgeries and things to fix, okay, but at least physical therapies that can help put things right, you know, a little bit more. Give somebody back clearer speech, give somebody back a better way of processing thought, coping mechanisms for the surge of emotions that come on, or the stresses that go along with it, and yes, the anxiety that goes along with not understanding why these things are happening. I also think that dementia in any of its forms, Lewy body, vascular, Alzheimer's, PICs, any of those are horrible, awful diseases, and they deserve some more research to be able to understand what the brain is doing. It would be a good thing, I think, and it would also, I think, help caregivers too to understand all of that better. I know that I would sure as heck like to know what happens during an epileptic seizure that can take away a memory, you know, that isn't even connected to what's going on. Like, it's not even a recent memory. So wow, yeah, I'd really like to know that kind of stuff. So there you have my little bit of things there for what I have been experiencing over the last few days and my thoughts on the next undiscovered country.
For my